from Boundless Embodiment. Welcome to episode 12 of the Boundless Embodiment podcast. I got my current business coach, Ryan Cook here. He is a business coach for consciousness coaches. And I'm really excited to have him on here. Ryan, how are you today?
I'm good. It's good to be here, and thanks for having me. And yeah, it's always a pleasure anytime we get to do this.
Yeah, man. I think a lot of people that are in this group, well, not a lot, but a decent chunk of them are actually coaches that coach in this space. And so I'm excited to pick your brain a bit because I think you have a wealth of great knowledge and wisdom to share that I think would be really useful for them. But before we dive into that, I would love to hear a little bit about your backstory. What got you into this space as a business coach, and specifically like what got you into coaching consciousness coaches?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll try to decide where to start. A big part of, when you say consciousness coach, is a big part of my intention in working with people in this space was to work with people that were a lot like me. I've found out, I realized like I wanted to work with people that I wanted to be friends with. I wanted to work with people that I could understand, and that I didn't have to make like this huge leap to try to do market research and figure out who to serve. And so, 10 years ago, I started off, I was in Bible college. I was going to be, I was getting my degree in church leadership. I was super fundamentalist Christian, and I thought my entire mission was basically to save the world, right? And through a long, series of events and like growing in my spirituality, eventually I started moving away from that path. And that kind of was happening at the same time as thinking about starting a business, thinking about wanting to travel online, thinking about wanting to leave the American dream, so to speak. Me and my wife, we woke up one day, we had the house, we had a car, I had motorcycles, toys, all this kind of stuff. We had more than we needed, but we were stuck inside a 9-to-5 job. We were working all of our hours away from each other. We were basically house poor because we had all this nice stuff, but then all of our money was constantly, going to bills. And so I eventually made the decision. We bought a URL called leavingthedream.com, and our plan was to get an RV, travel the world, and start working online. So all of that to say, I started taking some online courses, learning how to work online, learning how to start a consulting business about 4 years ago. And I started pretty much just trying to help anybody that was in business. So I was working with personal trainers, I was working with life coaches, I was working with dating coaches, I was working with other business coaches. I was working with pretty much anybody in the online entrepreneur space, and I was really just focusing on marketing. But as I kind of started evolving, as I was going through all of that, just had my first kid. I started going through my own spiritual awakening. I had tried psychedelics for a few times. Like there was a lot of things that were happening in my spiritual and my conscious process that was going along with becoming a parent, that was going along with leaving my job, leaving the religion I was part of. And all of that kind of correlated into me realizing that the way that I was doing things, I ended up getting a good job for a company that was doing like $1 million a month in the marketing space. And when I got on the inside, I realized that all they were doing was focusing on nothing but getting money out of people's pockets. And they were using all of the most current psychological techniques to get people to buy, to pry on people's pain. And so I lasted about 2 weeks in that environment before I ended up throwing in the towel, kind of blowing up on the CEO in the middle of a Zoom meeting and just being like, I can't be a part of anything that treats people like this. And part of that was because I was going through this spiritual process where I was becoming less and less identified with my own little set of problems and my one perspective. And I started realizing, like, you and I, we share something in common, and we share our essence in common. And I share that with everybody around me. And so, whenever I use the word conscious in my business, it's not really just a hot word. Whenever I use conscious, I'm using it in the way that I'm conscious that we are all connected, and that every single person that I do business with shares the essence that I share with everything else. And so I started following the old do unto others rule, treat other people like you want to be treated. So that meant I had to come up with a different way of doing marketing. That meant I had to come up with a different way of treating people. And then I realized, like, there's a bunch of coaches out there like me that also don't want to do things this way. They also need help. They also are here to do really great things for the world, and they are recognizing that we're all connected too. And so I was like, well, that's perfect. I think I'll just continue to help with people that are trying to make this place we live a more unified place. And so that is a really condensed version of a long story that kind of brought us to where we are now, which is, I'm working with people like you who are helping people heal their trauma and helping people to overcome, limiting beliefs and stories that are keeping them stuck in lives that they don't really want to be in. And so, yeah, that's a little bit. If you have any questions about any part of that or anything, feel free to ask away.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. I'm curious. I mean, it sounds like what you just shared literally is like you realize in the term, if you guys aren't familiar with this, there's a term called a customer avatar. What Ryan you just described sounds like is your avatar. You found like you felt really connected and felt like a sense of desire to work with people that were conscious, that cared about others, that saw things more universally rather than just selfishly, and decided that you felt like you wanted to support them, and that became like in its way like the foundation of like, well, I know who I want to go help. Now I got to go, how do I go help them, right? And then you decided to like, so you were in the marketing space for first, and then you transitioned to business coaching.
Yeah, like it really transitioned as I got more experience. So as I started learning more, as I started understanding more about the business structure themselves and how many other aspects of this thing that really took, there's a lot of hats that you have to wear in this kind of business, and marketing or lead generation is just one of those. And so then I started working more with people on their mindset, started working with them more on the structure of their business, on instead of just doing things that worked, to like finding what was aligned for them, finding what felt good to do instead of just what worked, because there's lots of things out there that if you just do it really, really hard and you put enough energy in, like you'll get some results. But there's also a way of doing things that feels good. And there's also a way of doing things that feels like you're following your purpose and you're following the way that you're meant to do this. And so that's one of the unique things I try to do, is help anybody that I work with find out what that is, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. Like if I give somebody a suggestion to do something and their intuition says, I kind of want to do it this way instead, then some other coaches might be offended by that. My inclination is to tell you to listen to your intuition. And so I think that's a big difference in what we do. Is we're not trying to build businesses that are built from one system on the outside, but we're trying to build businesses that come from the inside of people, that come from a deeper source of inspiration.
I think one thing we both have in common is we're both focused pretty heavily on alignment. And tell me from your perspective, why is alignment so important for your clients? Like what makes that one of the biggest or most important areas that you focus on?
Alignment is like not having alignment's like trying to drive your car with the parking brake on, right? And so it's like you've got two different stories going at once. One thing's telling the car to stay still, one thing's telling the car to go. and then you get friction out of the process, something's going to break. Most people are doing that with their lives, with their businesses, with their relationships. When they come to me, we focus a lot on where this alignment is between them and the business. But alignment might look like somebody saying that they need more sales in their business, but taking the actions that actually sabotage sales in their business because of limiting beliefs or because of the way that they've got something set up. So they're actually out of alignment between their goals and what they're trying to accomplish. Or it might look like they started a project 2 years ago and they've grown a bunch since then, and they've matured and they've evolved, and now they're still trying to put the energy into a project they're not passionate about because it serves an old version of themselves. And so then they have no energy in the project because they're out of alignment between what they really want and where they are and where they should be going now. So for me, alignment, helping people find that alignment, really means reducing the friction. It means going with the flow. It means finding the thing that works the most naturally instead of trying to find something that we have to force.
Beautiful. And I'm curious, like, for those people that you work with that seem to be like not aligned in the beginning, right? So you get someone new, like what do you find is like, you know, the number one place they're struggling most, or they're like most unaligned? Where do you feel like is like the first place you tend to help most people that, if someone's watching this and like they're struggling right now, without ever meeting them, like where do you tend to find like that they're most likely they're struggling right here and that's why they're not getting what they want?
A lot of times it's in people's foundations of like their offer and who they're trying to help. So a couple different main things of misalignment that I see with people, like one of them looks like somebody who has created the solution that they need right now. So whenever they go to start their business, they basically take an examination of where they're at, and they're thinking about who they want to help the most. But what they really are doing is projecting their current situation and their current stuckness onto their client and trying to fix that. So that would look like, starting your first business, not have making your first lead and deciding that you're going to be a lead generation business, but you still need to learn how to make leads. So you're out of I'll have people come in that are really struggling with the thing that they're trying to overcome. And instead of focusing on what they have overcome or what got them to this point, they kind of get focused on fixing their own problem, essentially. So that's a misalignment. If you're trying to create an offer for somebody, it should be someplace that you've already walked or someplace that you already have expertise in. So that's a big misalignment point, is people essentially, their shadows are creating their offers, essentially. And so then what we do in that kind of situation is we take an accurate look at where they're at now and what they have overcome, what they were like before, what some of the things they were struggling with, and we'll realign their offer in a way that makes them more confident that they can sell it, because it actually feels in alignment, because they think they know they can help the person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big one. Another one I get from people a lot of time that have taken other programs is like is that they've been trying to do things in a way that doesn't feel good to them. So the strategies that they're trying to use might be like super forceful. They might be super salesy. They might not have shown them how to actually get people that are interested in their product, in their service. And in this space isn't full of vultures. It's not full of a bunch of people that just want to take money out of your pocket. It's full of a bunch of kind-hearted, caring, loving people who are legitimately doing what they want because they love people and they would love to make a living off of it. But a lot of times, there's just a misalignment there. But those are probably two of the main areas I would say.
Okay, good. And I can attest to this because like these are like the two areas that I also worked with Ryan that helped me transition from my old company, The Real Masculine, this embodiment, and get a lot more clear in my messaging and who I want to help and why. And it was, I can speak so many, words of like affirmation that it really does work. That the alignment just completely transforms your ability to take action. It takes friction-based action, which is like very slow and procrastinating and avoidant, into very effortless, smooth, like very clear action. I think that, I'm sure anyone that's watching this can attest to themselves that when you're clear, action becomes easy and you're able to do a lot of it, from a place of like confidence versus when you're unclear. Um, I know you also, I lost my train of thought for a second. uh,
It's
now,
okay.
the bird threw me off for a loop a little bit outside. For those of you watching, I'm actually in the Santa Cruz Mountains right now with a bunch of redwoods in the forest doing these podcast calls. So
You can't really complain about birds with a backdrop like that. It's kind of where they're meant to be.
yeah, for sure. Um, so what do you see as like the number one driver between like coaches that like go through your program and like wildly successful versus those that end up struggling, or like those that end up, not getting quite to where they want to go? Like, what do you see as like the one difference maker?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about this the other day. I was going through some of my testimonials and I was clipping out clips of them. And that's one of the things I've never been the most amazing at, was sharing all of the wins. Sometimes it felt like it's too braggy or whatever. So I would be too reserved on sharing our wins. So started going through and I was looking at like some of my very favorite clients' testimonials, and like the ones that really hit and do really, really well, they do really, really well and are wildly successful. And then we've had, a few clients where they come in and it feels like everything is going uphill. And the main thing I think really comes back to alignment. And to be honest, what I am constantly trying to do in my vetting process when hiring clients is to only hire, or only not hiring clients, but taking on clients, is to really only work with the ones that fall into that first camp. Because the main thing that I saw with the clients that weren't ready to do the work was most of the time they literally did not have like the spiritual energy to put any more into their business. Like they were getting burnt out. They weren't in alignment with helping people because fell into that first category that we talked about, where they were trying to solve problems that they were trying to solve themselves.
Yep.
And so they started a business. They put together a coaching package. They, were had some wins and they were really trying to work through, but then a lot of their inner work shit just kept catching up to them. And so no matter how much I could show them the same strategy that worked for somebody before, or that's worked for me, or it's worked for other people, it's more than just the strategy. And that's why I became more than just a marketing coach. Is the more and more I learned and the more I stepped into the spiritual space and started going through my own work and started doing shadow work and started questioning my belief systems and started doing all of these different things, the more and more expansive I realized this whole thing is, the more connected. Like whenever you're trying to do this work, if you're going through, a spiritual crisis, then it is guaranteed going to affect how well that you can run your business. If you are going through if you're going through a spiritual awakening and at the same time you're healing and you're digging up past stuff, and at the same time you're trying to help other people, like sometimes that cup just runs too empty. And so a lot of times the coaches that I've seen that have had to take a step back, that felt like they were, Sisyphus pushing a rock up the hill over and over again just to have it roll back down onto them. A lot of times it was because they were being called back to their own healing. They were being called to their inner work. They were being called to basically take care of home before they take care of other people.
Mm.
And so, that's probably the main thing that I've seen.
Yeah, and I can relate to that because like literally about 1 year ago, I took a 5-month break from coaching because of that very reason, that I was not in integrity with myself, and I was helping others heal stuff that I had not quite fully healed yet. And it actually led me to take that break to go inward and work through some stuff, which I'm really grateful I did, because it got me more clear that I do love doing this work, and I do want to help people, but from the right place. So it sounds like what you're saying is like there's like a level of like self-awareness and integrity around where they're at themselves, and also just like um, back to the alignment thing, like feeling a sense of alignment that this is the direction they would like to go genuinely, right? If that's not
Yeah.
genuine desire, then um, nothing can really help them or save them. And I actually
Mhm.
see that with my own clients as well. Like in in, in truth, like if someone comes to me and um, they don't actually have a genuine desire to change, or like they don't have like a genuine desire like to know that they want to be more confident or more loving or experience life in a different way, that they're willing to see it differently, it usually is not going to work if they're just not willing to do that.
Yeah.
Without your personal willingness, there's only so much a great coach can do, right? And so it's
Yeah.
much the coach can only take you as far as you're willing to go.
Yeah, and I think there's people that are willing and not ready, and which is why some of them like sneak through programs, even if you're like really trying to, like, my goal is to only sign on clients that I truly believe are going to make it through our process. They're going to be able to get momentum. They're going to be able to get their business in order. They're going to be able to make way more money than what the investment is within our program. And so that's my intention as the gatekeeper of our program, is that I hold that with integrity as much as possible. But sometimes people get through and they didn't even know themselves. They felt willing. They felt like, okay, this action that I'm taking of hiring a coach is one of those actions that I'm taking. I'm stepping out in faith. I'm looking to grow. I'm getting help. But then they get there and the work is just calling them to more work, And so sometimes they don't, it's not something people can always see. I've had it where I was surprised that people weren't as ready to work on their business as they said they were whenever they show up on the first call, just because they still had some other work to do. And I think it's important, like, we've discussed this before. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to have no shadows left in the dark. We don't have to have no stone left unturned to be able to help people and to be able to heal people. But if you're trying to heal somebody else's wound while your thing is still a wound and not a scar, then a lot of times it can get kind of messy. And I don't remember who shared that before, but one of the things I talked about was like, share your wounds or share your scars, not your wounds. And
Mhm.
it's this idea of giving yourself time to process, giving your wounds time to heal, you know, is like the first order of business. And then, as that starts to happen, you can take a look. And so, no, coach, I haven't met one that's perfect across the board. I haven't met one that's perfectly healed in all areas. But there is a difference between somebody who has integrated some of their healing, who has been able to establish themselves in that new way of being that is kind of needed before you start asking other people to join you there. Right?
Mm. So like that leads me to like my next question is that there's a lot of coaches who experience this feeling of like being a fraud, right? Like this imposter syndrome. And I know I've experienced that before. I mean, we talked about it. You've experienced it before. Um, what do you have to say to those that experience that or struggle with that? What would you advise them or share with them?
The first thing that I'm coming to realize is to find where it's true. Find where legitimately you are out of your depth. Find where you are overreaching with your expertise, where you're really not in alignment. Because sometimes people's fraud alert comes up because it's their integrity. And it feels like, oh, I've got this and somebody would say, oh, you've just got a limiting belief, but it could legitimately be your actual integrity saying, hey, don't go here yet, you're not ready. And so then it feels like if you go ahead or it feels like you have to fake it till you make it. Then, that's a saying a lot of times in the space is fake it till you make it. You know, a lot of business coaches are like that. A lot of, you know, people in the space will, you know, it's, they want to hide what they've got going on sometimes so they can keep up appearances. But so we don't do ourselves any service, and we're not going to feel any less of a fraud if we don't take like actual accountability of why we're feeling like a fraud. So maybe there are areas and maybe there are promises, maybe there are parts of our offer that we need more expertise on, or that they need more expertise on, so that they don't feel like a fraud, because that fraud feeling is telling them, hey, you're not ready for this. And so in that situation, I don't say throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. Find out why you think you're a fraud. Can you borrow somebody else's expertise? Can you create something like, you know, we're going to talk about this later, like you and I did, where you join with somebody's expertise who helps strengthen the position that you're in if you don't feel equipped to handle a certain part of your business. So relying on other people, like accurately seeing where your weaknesses are, or where you've yet to build skills or strengths or knowledge, and why you feel like a fraud, and figure out a way to either make a different promise, fill out a way to fulfill that promise in a different way, maybe by using someone else's expertise, or finding out how to go and get that knowledge, find out how to go and get that expertise so you can actually confidently have it. So that is like the first part of it, where you're taking care of what is legitimately there. And then there's what a lot of people experience all the time, and what I would say is the imposter syndrome side of things. It's feeling like an imposter even when you're not. And that is the feeling of like, you know, I think perfectionism is wrapped up into that. Because I'm not perfect, I'm an imposter. Because I don't have this 100% nailed down, that means I'm an imposter. Because there's room for me to grow, it means that I shouldn't be teaching anybody yet. And that's just not the case either. So I think it's important to also recognize what you have overcome. So like making a list of the things that you have actually done, making a list of what it used to be like you, and of what it's like to be you now, and where you've come, and actually giving yourself the due that is done for how far you've come already. And so I don't think we have to do anything else outside of take an accurate assessment. And sometimes, you know, those judgments are quick and they're in the back of your mind and like they're nagging. But if you actually sit it down and say like, okay, it's the most empowering thing I think you can do when you feel like a fraud, is to find out where it's legitimate and how you can fix it, and find out where it's not legitimate, and give yourself the proof of why that's not legitimate. And that's kind of my take on imposter syndrome.
Um, I also, I work with a lot of coaches myself, that go through my program, and this is something that comes up a lot. And we do typically we find that a lot of times it's like an inner shame or self-doubt that's there. And once we go through and release that energy, they come back to their source, their presence, right? And in that space, I almost always ask the same question, like, who's the coach? Is the part that's yelling imposter the coach? Is that part the you that's coaching, or is it something else? And they always come to this space for like, right, the presence in me is the coach. And I think it's important, if you're listening to this and you're a coach and you experience this, that like the voice that's yelling imposter is not the coach anyway. That's a part of you that's scared, that's afraid. And in some cases, it might be coming from a part that's just your integrity saying like, hey, I actually haven't really solved that yet.
Yeah, I was about to say that's when the coach becomes that's the instance when the coach is actually the imposter thing is the coach, is if you're actually being an imposter, like if you're doing something fully out of integrity and you know it, and you get that call, it's like a good coach saying like, hey, get back in the game, this isn't the right move.
Yeah.
But I think that's discernment telling between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that part is really important. You know, when you're helping someone with something, you can generally take them as far as you've gone. And if you are capable of being extremely present on your calls, and put aside your stuff, you can, I've seen, you can help people still with that problem, But it takes a great amount of presence for you to put that aside for that moment and see them really clearly and help them get clear. Because like as a coach, you're not out there to fix people's problems. You're more there to help create space and help them get clear so they can get the answers within. Because that's really
Mhm.
what's most important is that like everyone has the answers that's already inside, and your job is not to go fix people. Your job is
Yeah.
at most to help them get clarity so they know how to coach themselves and get through their stuff. They know what actions to take. They know how to get aligned. And that's what you're really helping them with more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. You actually hit perfectly on that when you asked the question earlier, what's the difference between the people who do really, really well and the people who don't? And that's the difference right there that you're talking about, is like the person who's in that space can do really well. And yeah, and that's really the key. Like they have to be able to be looking for the answers themselves and not looking for the coach that can fix their problems. Like if the person comes in and they had this idea, I'm giving this person money so they can fix all of my problems, almost never going to work out. The ones who have take like ownership and responsibility and are looking at the coach as a guide or as a mentor. Like a lot of times I like to say I'm a business mentor more than I'm like a marketing coach or a consciousness coach or any of those kind of things. Like the word mentor for me really means like somebody who's emulating a way of being for you, as well as like specific things. But it's also the mentor is about the way of being and showing you the way, not just in words, not just in strategies, but the way they are. And you need somebody who's willing to take up that responsibility and say like, look for the lessons, learn from the lessons, take the actions. Like not somebody who's basically like, cool, I need you to go ahead and fix these problems for me because they're pretty frustrating right now.
Yeah.
The ones who are looking for that, even if you help them a lot right then, like if your time is inevitably run out with them, they're going to find themselves kind of back in this disempowered state
Mm-hmm.
because haven't learned how to it's kind of that whole teaching a man to fish or giving him a fish or teaching him to fish. Like the people who know how to actually fish and turn opportunity out of their circumstances, those are definitely the people
Mm.
who have
Yeah.
far
I,
and above chance.
Mm, I would say that's the same thing for me as well. Like, and I think that's like pretty universal across the board, regardless of like what kind of coach it is like the students that are willing and open-minded to see things differently, that they're open-minded to learn and be completely wrong about their paradigm, and also they're completely taking responsibility for their own stuff. um, that combination is a powerful combination that I think can, even with an average coach, that person will generally be pretty successful. With a great coach, they'll be like phenomenal. But that is really the crux of it. That's like the foundational piece. Because without that, there's no coach, no mentor that could really help you.
Yeah.
It's that responsibility is key to empowering yourself. One thing you mentioned earlier was, borrowing someone's expertise. Like if you're not like super strong in one area, but you'd like to be like in that space, you can borrow someone's expertise. And like, that's one thing that, you and I did. We saw that we had very complementary skills. I work with people on, shadow work and release and, transforming insecurities into like boundless confidence, self-love, which is an important part of, healing your own inner wounds so that you can help others. But I didn't have the business acumen or like the business coaching skills wasn't my strength. So while I had a lot of clients that were coaches themselves that were needing to work through blocks, and I helped them with that, I wasn't quite there with the practical business stuff. And then on your side, you are extremely strong in the practical business side, and you actually do have some background in shadow work, and you even helped me through something on one of our calls. But I think you even saw that wasn't like your core strength, right?
Yeah.
And one thing that you and I did, we put together this really amazing membership called the Embodied Coach. This is for coaches that who are still on their path, still working through their stuff, and want support in that area, but also need the practical business tools, the coaching on that side to actually create a system and funnel and a program that actually is aligned so they can actually create a thriving business. But I'd love to hear from your side, like from your take, like what is that about? And why did you want to do that? Why did you want to create that membership?
Yeah, For sure. Yeah, it kind of, before we had decided to take the membership on together, like I had had this idea for a membership that, and the idea, talk about the membership model just a little bit, like, a membership model for a business is, instead of having something like, normally what I've been doing is high ticket one-on-one coaching, very similar. You've had a high ticket one coaching offer, and that's usually the space that I've been in, but we wanted to create something that we could make more affordable, that we could serve people in an ongoing manner. So one of the downfalls to a high ticket program is a couple of them. One, that it's a finite amount of time most of the time. Two, they're more expensive because you're getting a lot of one-on-one time with this person. And we tried to solve both of those with a membership by making it affordable and making it to where you could be a part of it all year as long as you want. So you felt like you've got ongoing support through something instead of starting and stopping all of these different programs. And so, my heart was to create something that legitimately would equip coaches every single month to thrive in their life. And so for me, that meant that they needed to have the resources to regardless of the business, to thrive on their own internally. And so that's the inner work side of things, to be able to process what they're going through spiritually, to go through and integrate the things that they're learning, to be able to release past limiting beliefs that are keeping them from taking aligned action, to be able to get out of depression whenever they need to be working in their business and bringing the best energy possible, to be able to like show up and serve people because they have a full cup. And so I saw all of that as a prerequisite for a successful embodied coaching business. And on the other side of that, all of the strategy, all of the alignment and all of that stuff is wonderful, but then they also kind of need the vehicle to be able to take them along. And so that's kind of where the strategy, the business side of things, and knowing how to create workshops and how to put together their offers and how to be able to find and locate their ideal clients and how to have natural conversations, all these things that are really important for business, but they kind of went hand in hand. And so that was one of the things I was considering. Is I took an honest assessment of where I was at with this project. I felt that I had strengths and I had things that I could offer on the inner work side of things based off of just my pure experience. But I also felt that people deserved a higher level of expertise than what I would be bringing to it. So my first idea was to host guest workshops just with guest teachers for the inner work side of things, and then I would handle most of the business side of things. And then if there was something on the business side of things that I felt I could bring a better expertise from someone else, the plan was to outsource that too. So kind of from the beginning, my plan was to find and lean on the knowledge pockets that I didn't have or that could be stronger. So I still think that's an important point to reiterate for people, is that you're not a fraud if you aren't great at everything. And if everything isn't your strength, but you can actually put the effort out, and you can, either energetically wait for the right people to come along, which was kind of what seemed to happen with you and I, is it wasn't something that we planned. You had voiced to me that you were interested in possibly doing a project together or further working together. And I had been thinking about looking for a partner on this project. I had been thinking about the kind of person that I would want to have on this journey with me. And then, you basically expressed your interest that you liked the work that we did together, and, we thought we could do something more. Kind of naturally out of that, within a few weeks, we birthed the embodied coach. But, for me, it was really creating something that I needed whenever I was just starting, and still something that is something that would give me value even as a coach now. And so, we've got coaches who have been coaching for 15 years in there, and we've got guys that are just putting their offers together, but every single one of them can find value because the inner work is universally important. And no matter where you're at in business, even with the fundamentals and reworking your message and all of that kind of stuff is something that you can constantly hone in. So yeah, it kind of came together perfect.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I had this vision as we were going through our one-on-one coaching, I started to get this vision of like I wanted to work more with leaders and coaches, and help them so that they could be at their best and they could impact. This is the way I saw myself, like having a stronger impact on the world was this domino effect of already helping other leaders, other coaches, and it felt like the connection, the synergy between both of our desires just felt so aligned that it made sense. And this is another a testament to like alignment. When you're aligned and there's resonance, so much can get done, because we put that together in a matter of like a few weeks. We got nearly 15 people to sign up as a initial offer. And I think we're both pretty confident. Well, I'll speak for myself. I'm pretty confident that this is like a really high value program. And it's going to be something that's going to help a lot of people. And I think it's also really unique in offering something that pairs two areas that I don't think most programs don't offer this powerful combination of both working the inner work for the coaches and also the powerful business tools for those conscious leaders. And so I'm really excited about it. And if you're listening to this and that sounds like something that you might be interested in being a part of, where you get the inner work support and can work through your inner blocks, and also would like to practice or get the practical business tools, the business coaching as well, reach out to me or Ryan. We're not quite opening up the next round of members yet, but we will be soon. And if you'd like
Yeah,
to,
we're creating a wait list. We can put you guys on there. We can write your name down, let you know whenever we do decide to open up.
yeah, absolutely. Ryan, my last question for you is, if someone wanted a bit more personal touch from like a business coach, and they wanted to work with you, or they wanted to learn more about your offer, and potentially do some one-on-one work with you, like what would be the best way for them to be able to reach out and schedule a call?
Yeah, so the best way to schedule a call, I have a page set up that you can go to called organicsalescoach.com. And on that page, I've got, some of our client results. I've got actually a little bit of free training on there, and a spot that you can book one of our alignment blueprint sessions on. You can also contact me at ryan@organicsalescoach.com. Hit me up on Facebook, shoot me a DM. Yeah, and like I said before, we really are looking only to work with people who are aligned clients. And so our sales calls are not really sales calls. We call them an alignment blueprint session. And really what we do is we help whoever we dive on the phone with to take a look at everything that they've got going on in their business, what their current goals are, and help them to make a plan moving forward, whether or not they work with us. To kind of give them the best plan forward that I can see. And and then we only make offers to work together if we really think it's aligned. But this is a call that a lot of people show up to, even if they don't end up being a good fit for our program. They usually say that it's one of the more valuable calls that they've ever had. So if you guys are interested in that all, definitely give us a call, or look me up on Facebook. You can book a call through that page. And then also with the embodied coach, you can contact either Ruse or I, and we can put you on the wait list for that. It's going to be really powerful.
Awesome. And I'll put a link to the website and tag you on Facebook so people can get in contact with you. And I'll just give a shout out. Ryan didn't pay me to say this, but he is a fantastic coach. He is very present, very open. He really knows his stuff. And I can, without his support and help, I feel like I might still be very lost in what I want to do. And I feel like I'm in a much better place. And my alignment has helped me get a lot more clients than I was getting in the past, and better fit clients for me. So, check Ryan out. He's also extremely cost effective and underpriced in my opinion. So before he changes his mind and starts raising his prices, I would highly encourage you to check him out because he's ROI is quite nice because he doesn't even charge all that much. So thanks so much for joining, Ryan. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your
Yeah,
support.
absolutely. It's been
Appreciate your
a
partner and all the wisdom you shared today, man.
it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you, brother. It's been great working with you. And yeah, man, just always adding love and more joy to the space every time I interact with you. And so thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for letting me be a part of your story. And you know, the way that you show up and serve people is really inspiring. And so I'm lucky to be a part of that too.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. And I will catch you guys next time. Peace.